Today on Inside Utah Politics, mental health in Utah. Suicide prevention advocates are rallying on Capitol Hill, what they want to see from lawmakers before the session wraps up. Plus, a bipartisan group of governors meeting with the president and vice president during the week, why they say it's time to move past the pandemic.
Time now for Inside Utah Politics.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics. We do begin this morning with Taryn Hyatt. She is with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, here to discuss how the legislature is addressing mental health during this session. Taryn, always glad to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
If we could start with a picture of suicide in Utah. We know it's always been a big challenge for us here in our state, but we have made some progress in the last few years.
Oh, we absolutely have. You know, Utah's on track to have, year 4 of a decrease in suicide death rates, and we've moved, out of the top 10 once they release and finalize 2020 data. And nationwide, we've now seen 2 years in a row, including 2020, of a decrease in the national suicide death rate. So we are making progress, and we need to just, again, roll up our sleeves and keep going in this fight to save lives.
Yeah, one obviously too many, but this is something that you can celebrate, coming down. How did we get here? What happened?
It's been a collective effort from a lot of folks for a lot of years, really making sure that we're talking about suicide. This Live On campaign that was created through the legislature a few years back has elevated that conversation to make it okay to talk openly. Increasing help seeking, make sure that people know what resources are available. We saw an increase to calls to the lifeline. That was one of the good things, I think, during the pandemic, is even though people were struggling, they were reaching out. They were trying to get access to services and help. And again, we're supporting people who've had the experience of suicide loss. They're not left, to battle that loss by themselves.
Mm-hmm. This is something that impacts most of us, either directly or indirectly. Talk about the impact it can have on survivors, those who have loved ones who went through a suicide.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's most near and dear to my heart. We're coming up on year 20 since we lost our own dad to suicide, and just the landscape is so different, but back then it was so lonely. You didn't have people that came and supported you. And again, not because they didn't care, folks just didn't know what to say. And we know that when somebody loses a loved one to suicide, their risk increases, exponentially. And so we need to rally around people and talk, again, support them in that loss experience, provide them extra support and resources for that grief journey that they're going to experience.
Mm-hmm. On your shirt, we can't see it fully, but it says, "How are you really?"
Yes.
Talk about the significance of that.
We have been working so hard to just push having a real conversation. Most of us will say, "Hey, how are you?" And we say, "I'm fine." Well,
right.
how
and
are
you just
really?
move on, right?
Yeah, and when we're not, right, we're anything but. Right now we know we have a provider shortage, not just in Utah, but nationwide. The amount of us that need support and help to talk about what's going on it's just not there. And so we really need to be our brother's keeper. I say that all the time. We need to be willing to talk to one another, to have those real conversations, and not be afraid to say what's really going on. Just being able to talk with somebody about what you're experiencing emotionally and in your own mental health is important. That's how we break down the stigma and get people help.
Yeah. The Utah legislature has taken a lot of steps to address this in the last few years. Let's talk about what they are focusing on this time around. Representative Steve Elison was on the show a couple months ago talking about some of the things he's working on. What do you like what you're seeing from him?
Yeah, Steve has been such a great champion for our cause for so many years and really led the way. As always, he's going to bring another big omnibus bill that will support a lot of different aspects of our behavioral health care. First, we're looking at providing community grants to increase collaborative care. And what that means is in a primary care practice in rural parts of our state, they'll be able to apply for funding to bring in mental health professionals and be able to provide that kind of care in a primary care doctor's office. We know, again, that there's limited access to resources, so by having that available is big. They're also working on, and I actually did see that it went through just this week, a Live On license plate. We've had license plate designations for other health issues. We're going to have one now for suicide prevention, so sign up and buy your plate. Mm-hmm. But Steve continues to elevate the conversation around increasing capacity. We have a workforce shortage, we know that. Right now we're looking at a dramatic shortage in folks at our state mental hospital, at the developmental center, over 179 positions that could be filled today. And a lot of that comes down to pay, right? We pay these folks, our psych techs, $12 an hour. You know, it takes a special person to be able to work in these facilities and with these people, you know, some of our most vulnerable people in our state. And when they can make more at McDonald's, that just doesn't make sense.
No,
and so
not
there's
at all.
a big push for that, right,
Okay.
to increase funding, to pay them a living wage and a wage that is worth, you know, the effort that they're giving back to our community.
Yeah, another effort we've seen play out over the last couple of years, both at the national and state level, is a 3-digit hotline.
Yes.
The idea of being able to just dial that instead of a long 1-800 number that many people may not be able to remember, and that is the 988 bill. I believe it's being sponsored by Senator Thatcher.
Yeah, so that, remember, 988 is going live in July. In fact, it's available now on some cell phone services, T-Mobile and AT&T. But 988 will be the new number that you call for crisis. You no longer have to memorize that 10-digit number. And again, instead of getting a law enforcement response, you're going to get a mental health response. We've increased capacity for mobile crisis teams. Again, this is a trained mental health professional and a peer support who will come to you in plain clothes, no lights and sirens, at your home. You know, talk to you, de-escalate a situation in a healthy way, provide you support and resources. And then we're also working to increase capacity for what they call crisis receiving centers. So again, instead of people going to jail or psych wards where they're put on a 72-hour hold, there's a 23-hour receiving center where you can go, seek services, get support, find out what next steps you can take to work through whatever it is that you're dealing with. And so Thatcher's bill this year will again make sure that funding stays in place for 988, that we have people available to answer those crisis line calls, and again that we have a mental health response ready for when people are struggling.
Let's talk about Advocacy Day on the Hill. It's coming up on Tuesday. It's an important time for you and other advocates to get the message out. Talk to us about the significance of that day.
Yeah, you know, this will be our 5th annual State Capitol Day, and we invite our advocates from across the state to come and join us. You know, our advocates are people who, like myself, have been impacted by suicide. We've either lost somebody we love is struggling, or we ourselves have been there. And this is their chance to come to the Hill and meet with their representatives. You know, we tell our advocates all the time, you don't have to know these issues backwards and forwards, but come and share your story. Share how suicide has impacted your life and be a part of that solution to change the culture in our state. So we're excited. We have about 60 people signed up that are going to come and join us Tuesday morning. We'll start with breakfast in the Capitol boardroom and go over the different asks that we have planned. And then we're going to end our day with a rally in the Rotunda and have some really unique speakers who are going to share their stories that we'll get to hear from.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. One of them is a colleague of mine here at Channel 4.
I know, I'm so excited. So Nisha DeGaring is going to come and share her family's experience. You know, we need people to be able to talk openly about what their experiences have been. And Nisha's going to share about her sister's experience with the mental health system. We know that our mental health care system has not always been suicide safe, meaning some people actually have an increased risk for suicide when they leave inpatient treatment. So we're excited that she's willing to share that. Specifically, again, with her experiences at the State Mental Hospital. We know we have work to do there to, again, increase not only our workforce, but, you know, make sure that the care that we're giving is, again, safe and effective for families.
And that rally will take place at what time?
4 o'clock, and we're inviting anyone who's been affected by suicide to come and join us. We'll have masks available to keep people safe. We'll distance and do all those things, but we want you to show up. Bring a photo of your loved one. We're going to have a memory table set up where people can display those, and again, share your loved one with us if you've lost somebody.
Okay, we have about 15 seconds left, but talk about the importance and the impact sharing stories has on our lawmakers.
Yeah, you know, our lawmakers need to hear from us. Remember, they work for us. And when we tell them how we've been affected and the things that maybe weren't in place when our loved one was struggling or things that they could have done better, it helps inform their decisions. And if they're not hearing from us, again, they're making decisions that aren't informed. So come, share your story. Let them hear how suicide has affected your life.
All right, I have covered this event on the Hill many times and appreciate you coming in and previewing for it this year. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, stay with us. There's still more to come on Inside Utah Politics. Utah's arts, culture, and entertainment pumping billions into the local economy. We're breaking down the impact a little bit later. But first, President Joe Biden narrowing down his choice for his Supreme Court nominee. We'll have reaction from Washington, including criticism from some lawmakers. Welcome back. Governors meeting with the president and vice president during the week, asking them how the administration is working toward a future where the virus is just an accepted part of our lives. Washington correspondent Basil John reporting on this push from both Democrat and Republican heads of state.
Governors from across the country are calling on President Biden to help them move the country beyond the pandemic.
We've got to move to a management style on this disease versus a crisis management style.
Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson urged the Biden administration to offer guidance on the best way to live with the virus.
We need to have the guidelines very clear as to how you actually structurally move from the pandemic state of things to an endemic.
Hutchinson called for a new way to measure the impact of the virus, such as looking at the rate of hospitalizations instead of a focus on case numbers. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy agreed.
What does the road from pandemic to endemic look like, and how do we keep score?
President Biden says there is a lot of work to do to make getting back to normal a reality.
We got a way to go on that, in my view, but we're moving.
The president says health standards need to stay consistent across the board. He called on governors to enact policies that help keep kids in class.
We're going to try like the devil to keep schools open.
Hutchinson says he's ready to work with the president and his administration to find the best path forward.
We want to partner with the administration and be able to move beyond the pandemic, and we've got to do that as a state and nation.
Reporting in Washington, I'm Basil John.
Speculation swirling around the Supreme Court as President Biden invites Republicans to weigh in on the nomination process. While the president has not named anyone yet, many lawmakers have opinions on what they've heard from him. Washington correspondent Hannah Brandt explains.
The president met with Republican Senators Chuck Grassley and Dick Durbin to talk about picking a new Supreme Court justice. He's characterizing that move as his attempt to let Republicans have a say. President Biden is reaching across the aisle.
But I want the advice of the Senate as well as the consent if we can arrive on who the nominee should be.
Democrats could confirm a nominee without the help of Republicans if they stay united, but support from moderates like Senator Joe Manchin isn't guaranteed.
I look forward to the judiciary going through their complete vetting process.
Some Republicans like Senator Ted Cruz are already critical of President Biden's promise to nominate a black woman.
One of the most depressing things about Democrats today, they're very comfortable discriminating based on race.
But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says putting a black woman on the court is long overdue.
To make sure that our courts, and especially the Supreme Court, better reflect our country's diversity.
Regardless of who the president picks, Senator John Kennedy says the new justice needs to stay out of politics.
I'm not going to vote for a justice who's going to try to rewrite the Constitution every other Thursday to advance a woke agenda.
Others, like Senator Chuck Grassley, say it's too early to say how they'll vote.
The president makes a nomination. That's his privilege. And I won't have any comment until I see who he nominates.
The president has said he plans to nominate someone by the end of this month, and he reiterated that timeline when speaking about it on Tuesday. In Washington, I'm Hannah Brandt.
Coming up, a new report unveiled during the week details the economic impact of the arts, culture, and entertainment industry. We'll get to that after the break.
Watching Inside Utah Politics.
A new report unveiled during the week is shedding light on the impact of cultural arts in our community. For more on that, we turn to Crystal Young and Ernesto Balderas with Utah Cultural Alliance. Good to have both of you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Let's start off with the Utah Cultural Alliance. Crystal, tell us what your organization is all about.
Absolutely. We were founded in 1980, and we are the industry association for arts, culture, entertainment, live events, museums, film, and humanities.
So we're going to get into the economic impact of the industry, but first just talk about the state of the industry as far as what it means to people here in our state.
Can I take that?
Sure. So the cultural industry means a lot to everyone. Right now, unfortunately, the industry generated $9.1 billion in indirect sales and spurred an additional $8.7 billion in indirect sales in 2020 to make a total of $17.8 billion in sales. So that shows that even though the COVID-19 pandemic is currently ongoing and did have an impact on the cultural industry, the industry is still generating quite a bit of sales for Utah's 2020 GDP.
Yeah, that's pretty mind-blowing when you think of everything we went through during the COVID pandemic, Crystal, that it still brought in that kind of money. But before we move on and talk about jobs and more of the impact on COVID, if you could talk about what it means for families and children to be able to go out and see these events and participate in this type of entertainment.
Absolutely. You know, Speaker Wilson actually talked to this a little bit yesterday when we released this report. We're in such a divisive time in our country, and nothing brings us together like the magic of these memories and the magic of these connections here in Utah when we dive into the arts, culture, and entertainment offerings of our state, which really are unparalleled. We have a much bigger and much more supported industry than we should for our market size here, and it's because this is part of who we are as Utahns. We have been doing this since our state was founded. We have prioritized this since our state was founded, and even before Utah became a state, our Indigenous residents have been talking about the importance of arts and culture and telling their stories through art, through dance, and even through storytelling itself for thousands of years. And it's what we are and who we are and what we do. We like to say what brings us all together as an industry is we are the business of living. We're the business of making your life the best possible.
Yeah, I love how you put that right there, and it's amazing how far we've come. We can now see the best shows in the world right here at home. Ernesto, talk about the job impact, because we're talking hundreds of thousands of jobs created by this industry.
Of course. So in 2020, the cultural industry supported and created roughly 108,560 jobs. That means that 1 in 12 Utah jobs was either directly or indirectly attributed to the cultural sector. And because of that, that meant that many people were employed within the cultural industry, and that includes both in front people and behind the scenes individuals like stage riggers, technical designers, all of those people that you don't necessarily see, but if they're doing their job well, you don't ever notice them.
Yeah. Crystal, we alluded to this earlier, but let's talk more about COVID and the impact, because this industry was really hit hard during the year 2020, wasn't it?
2020, 2021, and even now in 2020, we're still seeing impact. Indeed, we were the second most impacted industry after leisure and hospitality. And it really could have been a lot worse. In fact, my colleagues at other industry associations for the cultural industry in other states don't have the same rosy picture that we have. Yes, our sales were down $1.3 billion, which is a lot, but it could have been worse. We did lose around 30,000 jobs, but then a lot of them have come back. We were allowed to open sooner than a lot of states were allowed to open, and not only that, our state legislature, including Unified Command, so Governors Cox and Herbert were part of this as well, they together invested $30 million nearly in 2020 and $8 million into emergency relief in 2021. And that really is the difference for Utah versus other states.
So you credit Utah and its leadership for getting things open again earlier than what we saw in other places.
Absolutely. That and the investment they made to help us make up for lost revenue. Because even though we were open, doesn't mean we had full theaters, doesn't mean people were fully comfortable in coming back. And then, of course, as we're seeing with the Omicron wave, we've had to do a lot of cancellations of our own because too many people involved with performances have been sick. We often see theater companies casting 3 or 4 actors deep into the leads to remain open. We all saw Hamilton having to close recently because of too many COVID cases, but they are back open this week.
I wanted to make sure to point that out because unlike maybe what we would have seen earlier, they have added shows at the end of the tour.
Yes, you can still get tickets, actually.
Yeah. All right, so On Tuesday, you all were up at the Capitol unveiling this report that we are talking about with President Adams and Speaker Wilson. Ernesto, talk about the significance of those two joining you in unveiling this report.
Of course. So I also want to make sure that as we recognize the unveiling of this report, that we recognize the wonderful partnership that we had with Utah Division of Arts and Museums and Salt Lake County Arts and Culture. Without the partnership and the co-publication funding that they provided for this report, we wouldn't have been able to do it without them. So with President Adams and Speaker Wilson, they both are tremendous leaders within the Utah legislature, and they have supported the cultural industry in 2019, 2020, 2021, and continue to do so in the future looking forward. So we were happy to partner with them and have them speak on various jobs and cultural impact that the industry has on this great state.
Crystal, maybe go over some of the recent investments the legislature or state has made in the industry. And here we are in the middle of the legislative session. What are you looking for this year? Because a lot of people are coming up and wanting a piece of the pie.
Absolutely. We do still need emergency relief, economic recovery relief, so we do have an ARPA request. But we also have requests that have helped sustain this industry and created increased investment in this industry over time, and we're hoping to grow those again. And so over the last several years, the legislature has made a really phenomenal investment into the Arts and Museum Sustainability Grants that help support many of the nonprofits throughout our industry. And support really isn't the right word. You know, all businesses need investment to scale up. And what the legislature does with these grants is they're creating an investment into this industry for all of us Utahns to enjoy. And we so appreciate that support. We also are requesting $10 million to create a new capital facilities grants program. Leadership actually created this last year, did $2 million as a pilot. Everybody really liked how it went. And this is a grants program that can help create theaters and museums and history buildings and all sorts of things. All of our Daughters of Utah Pioneers buildings throughout the states, they always need help. It'll be able to support buildings like this across the state, and we're really excited about that. Our third and final request, fourth, I guess, I mentioned the ARPA request, but our fourth major request is opportunity expansion grants to be administered by Multicultural Affairs. And even though that's not fully our industry in arts and entertainment, we have a lot of members who work with diverse Utahns, and we're excited to see, hopefully, that grant program be created.
Ernesto, we talked a little bit about the hurdles we're still going over when it comes to the industry, shows having to pause but be put back on. What do you want people to know, and what can the public do to help as we move through these challenging times?
Of course. Well, the public can start by following us on social media. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we are hosting our 45 Days of Advocacy campaign, in which we're letting people know how they themselves, as individuals, as organizations, can truly advocate for the cultural industry. As going forward, we want people to thank their legislators, because no matter what, we need to be grateful for the investment that the Utah legislature has already given to the cultural industry throughout 2020 and 2021. That is one of the most important things that individuals can do to advocate for the cultural industry.
Okay, Crystal, we have about 30 seconds left. What's the outlook? Where do we go from here?
Go to a show. Go to a museum. Come join us and experience the business of living. Your life will be enriched, and we are happy to make your lives better.
All right, really important conversation and work that you do. Thanks so much for being here and giving our viewers a look at the impact of the industry on our state.
Thank you so much, Glenn.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break. We leave you now with a look at what's on the radar in the world of politics. We're entering the 4th week of the general legislative session. As we heard earlier in the show, Suicide Prevention Day on the Hill is this Tuesday, the 8th. The Capitol will be quiet on Monday, the 21st. That's for President's Day. And then the final day is Friday, March 4th. Make sure to connect with me on social media. I'd like to know what you think of this show and other issues that are important to you. You can email me at InsideUtahPolitics@abc4.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks so much for making us part of your Sunday morning. We hope to see you again next week as we go inside Utah politics.